This is Transcend with Nat, where we are awakening to the spiritual heart, sharing stories and awarenesses along the path of transcendence. Hi, and welcome to Transcend with Nat. This is Nat. I am your host. It has been a long time since I have done a podcast, and now I am videoing them so that you can actually watch them and not just listen to them. So that's for your pleasure. I'm going to be introducing first my new book, which is Transcending, The Practice of Spiritual Living, Volume 2. So in case you missed it, I did have a Volume 1 about a year ago that came out, and now we are into Volume 2 of Transcending. And you can get this on Amazon. It's available to order through Amazon. So get your copy today. I'm going to be using this book today in the podcast. And the first chapter is The Loving Side, Chapter 1. I'm going to start with the top quote of the book, of the chapter. We have an opportunity to participate in our life as a statement of loving and caring and sharing and nurturing, not climbing up on the mountain and staying in safety, but actually moving down into the field of battle, not fighting, but forgiving the fighting. And that's by John Roger. And for those of you who are new, who haven't heard me talk about John Roger before, he is my good friend, or was. He's passed away a decade ago. But he's my good friend and also my spiritual guide, way shower, teacher, mystical traveler. He's the one who taught me. I lived with him, I worked with him, I traveled with him for almost 20 years. And he taught me everything I know. He taught me about the spirit, how to move into the higher realms of spirit. He guided me, he showed me on those inner realms. I still work with him on those inner realms and here in my own way. So let's move into the first chapter here. That quote by John Roger is, I think, very impactful, especially today, especially with everything going on in the world. Not that it's ever not impactful, because there's always challenges, difficulties, things going on in this world. It seems to be the nature of this world where there is fighting, there is disturbance, there is separation, and the spiritual call is to not engage in that. It is to forgive that, to bring compassion and loving to that. One of the things that I have been acutely aware of is how people, as my good friend says, everyone's living in different bubbles. Another way people talk about this is we've come to a point where a lot of people have separated more into their tribes. This can be religious, this can be political parties, who you vote for. It can be a lot of different areas where you'll find people are separating more. Now, the key tool, or one of the key tools of the negative power, is to create separation between people, to create discouragement within yourself, to create separation between you and others. So when you find yourself experiencing that greater level of separation, just know that that's really not where you're going towards. You're going towards the light, if that's your intention. That's what I teach here. That's what I'm sharing with you, is those techniques and those tools to let go of the disturbances, to let go of this experiences of separation, so that you can experience more oneness with all of humanity, with your fellow men and women, and with your brothers and sisters, because we all are so much more alike than we are different. And that is even more brought home when we do retreats, trainings, workshops, and live events. And that's something that I've been doing touch and go for a few years. I did a lot of that with my teacher, just years and years and years of classes and retreats and workshops and fundraisers and seminars and all sorts of things. But lately I've done a few of them. This summer I went to Aspen and did a workshop with my friend Gretchen, and we did it about overcoming obstacles. But one of the key things that you find in these workshops, in these events that have that spiritual focus, whether it's working with the tools of spiritual psychology or meditation or a combination of all of the above, as I like to do, is that you realize how we all are dealing with very similar problems, and how when you're in these one-on-one or these trios where you're working with other people and they're sharing about their process, they're sharing about their challenges in ways that you don't usually do in regularly everyday life, you find that they're speaking to your problem. That's one of the things that is amazing when people share at these events, is that they often say, wow, this person who is in front of me, who I never knew, they were speaking directly to my challenge. They're speaking directly to my problem. And at first you may think it's just this cosmic coincidence that that specific person is the person you're working with. But really, it just happens over and over. And you realize sometimes we do these retreats for days of this processing work with other people and different people. And you go from person to person and you realize that we really, truly are the same. And you develop this oneness with the others and this awareness and this loving and this compassion that those people that you may have prejudged or thought they had it all together, that they're struggling just like you, whether they're rich or poor or whatever race or religion, that when you really get to the heart of our challenges, that we have so much more in common, that we're so much closer in that oneness, in the oneness of who we truly are, in the oneness of the spiritual truth of who we truly are in our heart, which is that divine aspect of God, that branch of God that is who we are at the deeper level, which is the soul. And that in that level, in that awareness, we are one, and it opens people to this greater loving. And I just think that that's one of the more amazing experiences of doing a workshop, doing a retreat like the ones that we do. And so stay tuned, because there's going to be more. There's going to be more coming up of doing that. So one thing I want to let you know about is that the offerings that I do, and the first one is the spiritual counseling, which I do what I call a spiritual life review. And it's just an opportunity for you to really check in with yourself and to look at your life and what's going on in your life and everything that you're experiencing in the light from a higher consciousness. You'll have an opportunity to reconnect to the light, to the loving, to the spirit, and the God of your heart. In the process, you'll also be able to let go of things that are no longer working for you and to see those in a different light as you reconnect to your true self. So that's something, all these things you can get to on my website, transcend.online, including the spiritual counseling. I also, besides this podcast, I have a weekly newsletter for those of you who subscribe to that, to my Substack. You'll get it in your email, as well as you can get it online at Substack. And that's called Transcend with Nat, the same as this podcast. And then I have these two books, and you can get to those through my website, transcend.online. And in our world today, one of the things that I have become very aware of is the separation, the bubbles, the the great level of separation. And some of those things that really have been contributing to that, from what I'm seeing, is the amount of people, especially in the US and Western civilization as a whole, I'd say at this point, that are on consciousness body altering substances, whether that's illicit drugs, whether that is pharmaceutical drugs, whether it's legal drugs now, such as marijuana, which all these different drugs can change how we see and view the world, can open up these portals to different levels of consciousness. Especially, there's a lot of people doing the microdosing of the hallucinogenics. They're doing the ayahuasca. They're doing all these different types of consciousness-altering substances. And that can have profound effects energetically and spiritually on people, especially how they relate to themselves, to the world. And though people may have these amazing experiences that seem transcendent, you really don't get that high in spirit with substances. It just, I haven't seen that take place. When the natural way, the inner way of opening within to the sound current, moving on that, you get into levels and dimensions, because we are in multidimensional beings. We have bodies on many levels. We can move our awareness into many levels. And by doing that natural inner awareness through the meditation, through the spiritual exercises that I've talked about, and a lot of the things that I've put out, including this book, I talk about spiritual exercises, Transcending Volume 2, available on Amazon. Let me just give it another plug. Is that you can transcend these lower levels. You can move into places beyond the levels of the karmic fields and into the higher realms. And that really is grace. When we talk about grace, when we talk about the Christ action, when we discuss the mystical traveler consciousness, the moving of the awareness inwardly and upwardly. Now, I lie when I say inward, upward. It's not that kind of direction, but that's the best I can say, is that you awaken, you open into this new level of awareness that truly can go so much further and the higher levels than a lot of these substances will bring you to. The other downside with the substances, and this can include pharmaceuticals as well, is that they open you, but then they allow things can come in. They change your view. They may take you off track of what your lessons are to learn here. People use it as a way out of the struggles they have, but it rarely actually fixes anything. And it can change how you view things, but that's not always positive to have it change like that. And it definitely leaves people open to the other side of things, which is that informational algorithms of manipulation. And there's so much going on in the manipulation of people's attention and their brains, and how they're being skewed to view the world in different ways depending on the algorithm, depending on what's being fed to them in these devices that we have in the computers and the cell phones and artificial intelligence and all of these areas. It's skewing and separating. It's interesting because I live in Puerto Rico, and even the gas station in the States, the gas station, you pull up and you put your credit card into the gas pump, you pump your gas and you leave. You never have to usually interact with any other person. In Puerto Rico, we don't have that. So you have to go in, you interact with the clerk, you give them your credit card, you fill up your tank, but you have to interact with someone. And I recently went back to San Francisco and they had those driverless cars. And you can call a driverless car instead of an Uber that has a driver, you can call the driverless cars. And it struck me how technology is really creating more and more separation between people, because not only through the manipulation of information, but also you don't need to interact with people. Less and less are you required in your daily life, the more technological you live, to actually interact with people. And that alone can create greater separation, or the perception of separation. And so really what I'm getting at here is the separation is the tool of the negative power. That perception of our separation from God is the root of a lot of the evils we see. So moving into the awareness of your oneness with God is the solution. And what do you find when you move into that experience is loving, is compassion, is caring. These are experiences that you will have as you move back into that integrated oneness with God, with the Spirit within you, with who you truly are. And as you become more integrated, you start living with more integrity. And if you look at the words integrated and integrity, they obviously have similar roots in the etymology of the words. And that's because as you integrate with God, you live more in integrity. And the way that John Roger spoke of integrity, his definition was going with the truth as you know it, as a heartfelt response with care and consideration for others. And I think that's a really useful and practical way to look at what integrity is, because it becomes one of you are standing in your truth and in the truth as you know it, with care and consideration for others. You may disagree with people, and you may be very strong. I have very strong opinions, but they're relegated to lesser importance in my life than that oneness with God and that oneness with others, regardless of outer circumstances. And that awareness is achieved through the spiritual exercises. And you can find out more about that in a lot of these other podcasts that I've done, as well as the newsletter, as well as the books. Both have a section about doing spiritual exercises, about that process of reattuning inwardly, looking inwardly, seeking the kingdom of God, as it says in the Bible. Seek it first. As you move into that greater awareness and close your eyes and move back into that awareness of who you are, into that connection point inside of you with the Spirit, that also shifts your perspective, where you start to see as God sees, which is seeing the goodness, seeing the loving, responding with loving to whatever comes forward. And that's why this first chapter is the loving side. Because whatever side you're on, and a lot of people talk about the right side of history, the wrong side of history, you're on the wrong side of history, you're on the right side of history, I'm on the right side of history. Regardless of what side you're on, make your side the loving side. And that includes a respect of others who see things differently. You may not agree with their opinions, but because you are in touch with who you truly are and are aware of who they truly are beyond their opinions, that you have respect for that one, and you choose to live your life with that loving forgiveness, compassion, and the integrity of that integration with the Spirit within. Where when the negativity comes your way, when people start responding to you out of their own separation, their own limitations, their own darkness of consciousness, their own unawareness of their own divinity, because most evil is, well, John Raj used to say evil is unnecessary experience. And the way I see it is that most of that unnecessary experience, most of that evil, most of the darkness, the root cause of that is the perceived separation from God. And when you become aware of that oneness inside of you, and you become aware of others' oneness with that as well, it brings you together in that oneness, in the spiritual levels where we are one. And so the solution becomes going back into that awareness of God through the spiritual exercises, where you get above the fields of karma, where you get above these denser levels where there is polarity, where there is separation, and you start perceiving the oneness once again. And as you respond to others who are living in the lesser consciousness with your loving, with your compassion, with the understanding of the higher consciousness, and that doesn't mean that you let people just roll over you. There's nothing honorable about taking abuse. There's nothing that says, oh, you have to just take it and not get out of that situation. Get out of that situation. If you keep getting clubbed in the head, move. Get yourself in a better situation. And then once again, forgive. Once again, move into the integrity of your oneness with God. And what comes from that is loving, so that when the negativity comes towards you, at you, that what comes back is loving. Not because you're denying your own negativity, not because you're in denial of your own darkness, not because you're in denial of those aspects of you that have been disowned by you, but because you are embracing them, because you see them, because you acknowledge them, because you do see what that is, but you see it from a place of compassion, loving, and understanding that as people move into that oneness with God, and as they see you doing that as an example of what that is and how you respond to the negativity by transmuting it and letting it go back out with loving, that they can move towards that also. And some people won't. Some people are lost this lifetime, but not one soul will be lost, because God can't lose itself, because every soul is divine, is an out branching of God, of the greater God. So whatever side you're on, just focus on making it the loving side, because that's the side of God. And that encompasses all sides and all opinions, all races, all religions, all political parties and beliefs. That wherever you are, whatever tribe you're in, that you treat all people and things from that loving consciousness within you. So you can get this book, Transcending, on Amazon by me, Nathaniel Sharratt. And you can go to my website, transcend.online, to stay up to date with the events or anything else going on, the books, to book a session with me for the spiritual counseling, to look at your life and have that opportunity to really touch in with looking at your life from the higher perspective, from the light consciousness, and get all that at transcend.online. And until next time, God bless you all.
Loving me 'cause I'm free. Just forgive yourself. Come on, let it be, 'cause I'm free.